Welcome to Superstitions and Traditions. I'm Kristen.
And I'm Trish.
And this is our podcast about all of history shenanigans and occasional historical asshole.
I think we have a great one today. I'm pretty excited about it.
Are you?
Especially on this snowy day here.
I know. Today is Superstitions, and we are going to talk about Floriography.
Okay.
The
I love
art of communicating through flowers.
Flowers have been used to communicate in lots of different ways.
They have. They have. You can tell someone you love them. You can tell someone you don't like them.
You can tell someone you're so sorry.
You can. That is the preferred use.
Yes.
For a lot of men.
Mm-hmm. Just to say, gee, I messed that up. But
messed
here,
that up.
have some flowers.
They're pretty.
They are pretty.
It softens the blow.
It does soften the blow.
I like it.
I think, as you pointed out earlier when we were just conversing, there are several people that just need to send more flowers.
That's right. Flowers having meaning has existed forever. Ancient Greeks, ancient Egyptians, ancient Romans used certain flowers symbolically in rituals as a way of communicating, or symbolically with all sorts of different things. Greeks in particular assigned meaning to flowers based on the time they grew, where they were located, and their association to their gods. The same with Romans.
Okay.
They had certain flowers that they associated with certain gods, and it stemmed from the mythology. A lot of times those gods up there were just turning people into things, and
so if we could just find the perfect flower.
Yes. Yeah, violets exist because they were trying to protect the virtue. Yeah. They're just the flower narcissus exists because some of us were enjoying our face too much in the reflection of water. Just in their religion, their beliefs, that's how a lot of flowers came to be. And so those flowers have symbolic meaning that they ran with.
I got it.
Also, there is a game. It started out as a game in the Ottoman Empire in Turkey called Selam. And it was often used with ladies of the night or prostitution or brothels to send messages to their lovers.
Oh, really?
And what they would do is pick a flower, and you would associate that flower with things that rhymed with it.
Okay.
So it kind of had it meaning. They were communicating through the flowers they were sending, which is how we get Floriography not today, because we don't really use it anymore. It is a lost art.
We just send a text.
We send a text or post on social media.
Mm-hmm.
The Victorians loved the idea because their society, their culture was so reserved that there were a lot of things you just didn't say out loud.
So they actually used it as cryptology to communicate.
Yes. Sending secret messages with flowers. You could send a flower to the person you were interested in pursuing romantically.
Okay.
And then that person could send their response back to you.
Via flower.
A flower.
So would I drop the flower off? Because obviously there were no
There actually
florist
was.
There were?
Yes. During the Victorian age is where florists came about.
Oh, really? Okay.
But only in urban areas. They weren't, running them out to rural areas. And you could have them delivered in some places. There was also meaning in how they were carried, how they were worn, in how they were assembled If there was a ribbon around it that was towards the left, it meant the giver. These are my feelings for you.
Okay.
If it was to the right, it was the recipient. This is how I feel like you feel about me.
So I could communicate my undying love for you via flower, or my gee, just leave me alone via flower as well.
Yes. So you could send somebody a red rose. That meant I am in love with you. And if they send back a yellow rose, that means, oh, that's cute. We're friends. That was friend zoning in Victoria.
Back in the day. Okay.
Victorian England.
Okay.
So the Victorian was loosely based off of the Turkish game Selam. So this started for Victorian England with Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, whose husband was an ambassador to the Ottoman Empire and Turkey, and saw firsthand their game while they lived in Constantinople. Saw the Turkish Selam rhyming game that was associated with flowers, and she thought it was brilliant and wrote home about it. And eventually a book was published in the 1800s based off of what she had introduced to them.
So did the book tell them how to use it to communicate? Is that what
yes.
kind of like a manual? But
yes. So she lived in Constantinople in the early 1700s, like 1716. It would be probably about 100 years. I think it was mid-1800s that the actual book was published by a French woman.
Okay.
So, and it outlined everything. In the 1800s, there ended up being several Floriography dictionaries published. So you could look up the flowers you received to know what the person was sending you.
Like
the secret message. Yes.
Or like all those little letters that kids send out now that I don't know what mean, that I have to get the Urban Dictionary for.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Like our texting.
Yes, because I don't know what that
acronyms.
means. Okay.
Yes. So it was a huge communication tool for Victorian England because they were trying to be nice.
I had to keep all those feelings buried
deep.
But I keep all buried, but I can send you some flowers.
That's right. It was also used a lot in the literature written during the day.
Yes.
Jane Eyre, for example, when she left the orphanage, the home, Bronte described the crocus and the snowcaps growing, both of which crocus symbolized vitality and youth, and snowcaps symbolized a rebirth or a renewal. So
I kicked my crocus, I think, because I am no longer vital in youth.
You kicked your crocus.
Well, no, they also, I read something that talked about, they called it nosegay back in the day, because gay means ornament. And nose meant, I guess, to smell, because sometimes the bouquets were used to hide
scent, or
So, is it inappropriate if it's used to hide scent for me to send you one going, hey, this hides scents, or is that like maybe I'm thinking, or you thinking, I think you don't smell well, or is it just something that you kind of think everybody did?
It's something that everybody did, and it wasn't necessarily because of their personal smell.
Okay.
It was. There was also theory at this time that smells could cause illness, and the air you breathed could make you sick and spread tuberculosis and all these other deadly cholera, these things that are out there and killing people.
Right.
Like the plague doctors, it stems from medieval times, the plague doctors, when you see them have that big long nose, on that nose of their mask was stuffed with flowers and herbs, so that what you smelt was good.
Okay, did they think that it helps you not get the disease too? Okay, so not only did things smell better, but
yeah, and the nosegay was not necessarily to make you smell better. It was to improve what you were smelling. Okay. So it was a nice thing to send to somebody, especially on really smoggy days, or
because it meant, hey, good health to you.
Good health to you. Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Now, Native American cultures kind of did this. It wasn't kind of a form of communication, but not like during the Victorian days.
Right.
It was more of just an overall, acceptance of the power of the healing process and the spiritual process of the flower, but not so much a way to communicate.
Right. So, that part of European culture was kind of pretty much wiped out. The healing properties and things of plants, it was chased out with witchcraft. It was associated with witchcraft.
Okay.
Some doctors still used a few plants. Some of the floriography coincides with the herbal uses of plants.
Okay.
But for example, pennyworts, you would send somebody pennywort when you wanted to remove them from your life, because it was also used for its abortive properties.
Okay, so that kind of meant the same thing. If I send you a
bouquet of pennywort, yes,
I just go, okay.
We are aborting this relationship.
It's kind of like ghosting, but not really, because I guess once you've at least let them know.
Right. I mean, it's a little nicer than just ghosting.
Okay.
But I'm sure ghosting was real easy in the Victorian era too.
Because you didn't communicate very often. So,
Right. There was also a belief, and I don't want to speak too much on it because I have not researched it extensively. I mean, not enough to feel like I know anything about it other than that it existed. But there was belief that the shape of a leaf or a petal or the fruit coincided with the shape of organs. So like walnuts, they look like a brain. So walnuts would symbolize intelligence, and eating walnuts would improve brain function.
Okay.
So I know a few of them, and some of them are true, and then some of them that was a cute association, but that really didn't hurt, but it didn't help.
Yeah.
So there was that influencing floriography as well.
Okay, so now as we move on to, because I always like to bring a little side note, homosexuality. There were several circumstances that it was used to communicate back in the day when being openly gay was just not an option. You had to hide, but you would use it to communicate with others that said, hey.
Yes. Homosexuality in the open was allowed in ancient cultures.
Yes.
Greek, Romans. Not only was it was embraced.
Right. As in a lot of native cultures as well.
Yes. And then with the introduction of the church in governments, it was a no-no. So then they would use certain flowers to subtly say, I'm not looking for a woman, I'm looking for a male partner. So yes.
So like the green carnation, which Oscar Wilde encouraged when his play was being shown, and he encouraged people that gay men to wear the green carnation so that they would know that they associated with that. Sappho's, the Greek poet.
Yes.
From the island of Lesbos.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, it's where violets, which are used to represent and oftentimes used to, during that time period, to demonstrate, hey,
right,
here's some violets meaning.
Yes, violets would symbolize female to female romantic relationship, and green carnations were a male to male with male romantic relationship.
Very good. And pansies just got a bad rap.
Pansies. Now, if you notice, we are, on the island of Lesbos, and pansies were another one that symbolized homosexuality, which in turn ended up being an insult for a weaker man.
Yes.
So, yeah, we a lot of what we associate now stemmed from floriography as well.
And lavender?
Lavender, yes, was everywhere. And it was used in numerous ways throughout history. The medicinal benefits of lavender are incredible. But then we also had the lavender scare.
Yes.
And it was...
Let's get all those homosexuals out of the government. Yes. And the woman's movement, that, when they were trying to keep the lesbians out of the women's movement, and then there were several lesbians that stormed the stage and with their shirts on and about lavender.
Yes.
Several references in the Bible about, but not again used to communicate or anything, just used for, there was symbolism in it, but not communication.
Yes, which is, where a lot of this communication came from the symbolism. The Bible mentions lily of the valley. Off the top of my head, I can't come up with
a lot of roses, the thorns, the olive branch, which not a flower, but not a flower.
But it applied the same way.
Yes, if we stick the olive branch out there, that means I'm saying hey.
Right. And then there's also spiritual associations.
Oh, very much so.
With certain plants and flowers. Like, for example, when somebody passes away, what do you send?
Flowers.
You send flowers. If you send a plant, it's a peace lily.
That is true.
Because it symbolizes... Yes. Yes, and a lot of people now do it because that's custom. That's what
how did that originate?
The peace lily is symbolic for rest and peace. So it was a way of saying, I hope you find peace in the afterlife.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't necessarily for the family.
Not for the grieving family, but
it
to
was
help the person who has passed, the deceased, find peace in the afterlife.
Yes. There was also belief in a lot of ancient cultures that you could tell the character, the true character, not what they perceived or shown the world, but their inner thoughts based on when or if flowers grew on their grave. Which is one of the reasons why we put flowers on a grave. If you were truly a good person in your heart, they believed that when you were buried in the earth, flowers would grow.
Okay.
So that's where we get the idea of putting flowers on graves.
So that we can...
As a remembrance now, but when it started, it was they really were a good person, and this isn't happening fast enough, so I'm going to prove to the world
they were balled out.
Yes.
I promise you she was a good person. Look, here's the flowers.
It was also an indicator of witchcraft. If no flowers grew, or if weeds grew, then you knew they were a witch for sure. Because, they killed a lot of people.
Soil. You had a tough soil going around where you were buried. Your reputation could be ruined.
Exactly. And it was kind of used as a way to justify the murder or the execution, because they didn't consider it murder, but the execution of witches when nothing grew. Victorian England made it communication.
Okay.
It existed before in various cultures as a way of healing or ritual, or there was meaning to these plants and flowers prior. But Victorian England took those, made some dictionaries.
And then said, hey,
since we aren't free to express ourselves.
We have to keep everything hidden inside.
Yes, because if we
I have all my violets.
If we disagree, especially women in Victorian England, if they disagreed with their husbands or showed too much emotion, they were sent to sanitariums. So
if I disagreed with my husband and wore a flower, it kind of called him a turd. Was that acceptable? Was there a form of communication?
All sorts of communication done with flowers. You could send a bouquet of flowers to your enemy just to remind them that you hated them. There were certain flowers that
stood for hate?
Yes. That stood for dislike or dishonesty. You could tell them exactly what you think about them with a bouquet of flowers.
Why don't we bring that back?
I like it.
I like it.
I like the idea. I think you are dishonest and childish.
Here's sure. I don't know what flower would represent that. Do you?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I do know that there were specific bouquets.
It would be kind of fun to find a copy of the old dictionary and look all of those up. And
the first one listed the flowers and said this for this, this for this. As they progressed, these dictionaries would list by the bouquet or list by what you were trying to communicate.
So, with different combinations of flowers say different things.
Yes.
Okay. So if I put different things together.
Like a rose and a white lily, that a red rose stood for romantic interest, and a white lily was a symbol of unity and forever. So sending a bouquet with a red rose and a white lily was saying,
as long as you didn't throw in the yellow rose.
As long as you didn't throw in the yellow rose, that would be the response to it.
Okay. So a lot of this communication was romantic, but then there was...
there was friendship. There were specific bouquets that if there was a scandal amongst socialites, there were bouquets you could send to your friend that said, I'm standing beside you in this. Or, I think what you did was wrong and this is all your fault. I mean, you could say anything to anybody with flowers.
That is just amazing. I had no idea that it went that deep. I mean, I knew the basics about hidden things that you would use flowers to communicate. It
wasn't... Romantically is what is primarily known now, because typically people send flowers now for romantic interest or death.
Yes. Weddings, death. And, yes.
But at the time in Victoria, England, you would send it to anybody.
I would assume that the receiver of the flowers knew who they were from. Or could you send them anonymously?
You could send them anonymously. You couldn't... You maybe could pick some flowers from your neighbor, but there weren't really places you could buy them.
So you had
until Victorian England, they developed the florist, and these florists were knowledgeable about the communication with flowers.
Not so much the medicinal or spiritual,
right? But what they mean and symbolize. So you could go into a florist shop and say, I'm really sorry, I need 3. I don't know what. Right. You could go in and say, I know my wife is having an affair. And she's like, okay, I'll make a bouquet to let her know that you know. Or my friend is going through a rough time and I want her to know that I support her. And they would know exactly which flowers to...
Fascinating.
Yes.
Fascinating.
And then it kind of, there were couriers and things like that, so they could be delivered as
usually
well.
You had to deliver yourself.
Yes.
Or hire someone. I mean, you could obviously, if you had servants, you could
send them out.
Send them out to take the bouquet. I like it better than Facebook or texting.
I know. I'm thinking that is the way to communicate.
Yes, you get a little time to kind of cool off in between. Think about your feelings and emotions. Okay, then address that. It's not so much instantaneous.
Right.
It's pretty and they smell much better.
Right, and even if you are mad and you send a hate bouquet to somebody, it's still pretty for them.
I know.
So
it's like, oh, you're mad, but I
lost a friend, but look at how pretty.
And flowers. I love that. When do you think that our current generation stopped so much communicating with flowers? Like 1940s or 50s, we're still kind of.
We're a lot of things. A little bit, yeah.
Especially the hidden societies as a way to communicate.
I don't know. I think maybe the expense of them. Economically, we're trying to recover from 2 world wars. It became a hardship.
Right.
We had diverted so much away from or to the war effort that we're focused on creating things and throwing things to meet need.
Not
to keep your mouth in line.
If you're mad at me, you can just tell me.
You're just going to have to tell me right now because I can't grow.
If you love me, let me know.
Flowers shaped lots of.
Oh yeah, flowers in so many ways.
And medicines and thinking and symbolism. And
I mean, you think about some of the Native Americans and or other tribes and the flowers that they would wear, and they were just beautiful and what that symbolized,
and the use of them in Native rituals.
Oh yeah,
they were offerings to the Great Spirits and
cleansing of a house.
I sage all the time.
So do I, just in case you have some.
But however, it's not something you should do if you don't know how to do it, because you stir things up. So.
Yes, only sage.
Make sure you know what you're doing.
Yes,
and don't learn from a YouTube video. Talk to somebody who knows.
There's something to be said for experience and people that have been there and and go see the elders in your community.
That's right. Talk to the elders.
We're cute and know a lot, if we can remember it.
Are you an elder in the community?
I'm old.
Not yet.
Close.
I guess it would depend on who you ask.
I was going to say, hey. Yeah. Because you're kind of getting.
I'm getting old.
You're an elder to some.
To some.
You're moving up that way. Well,
all right.
Thank you for all of that.
You're welcome. Lots of fun. Talk to elders. Send flowers, not tweets. Can that be our slogan?
I like that. Can we get a shirt?
Yes. All right. Let us know your thoughts and come back and see us. Be sure to subscribe so you miss none of our shenanigans or history's shenanigans. And thank you for watching.
You guys have a great day, and we will see you soon.